Welcome to the Firefly Tutors TV podcast, where real teachers from all over the country discuss real solutions for parents and educators alike.
Hello, and welcome to The Buzz, brought to you by Firefly Tutors TV, where we talk to administrators, educators, and parents all across the country about current topics affecting school children today. Joining us today is Marlene Dandler. Marlene is an entrepreneur, advocate, mother, and the founder and CEO of Seashore Academy. Her work centers around creating a freedom-minded community for those who look for meaningful education options for their children. Founded in 2012, Seashore Academy currently has 4 locations in Southern California and provides high-quality academic options for those who want the flexibility of homeschooling with the environment of a private education. Today, we're discussing why homeschooling has been an increasingly popular option for California parents after the pandemic, a hot topic in California and across the country. Marlene, welcome to The Buzz.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us more about you, your background in education, and the story behind how Seashore Academy got started.
Thank you, Diane. I don't have a background in traditional education. I was really inspired by a few different books that I read and following a lot of amazing business leaders and reading their biographies. And I was really struck by how many successful people in the world are successful despite traditional education, not because of it. And a lot of, my thinking and research into that got me to really question the value of just putting my own children into the system without being incredibly intentional about it. And so I really, grappled and wrestled with what is the best way to educate, my own children. My husband and I actually sat down when our kids were really little and talked about the qualities that we hoped our children would have when they're 25 and 30 and 35. Social emotional skills, great values, strong sense of ethics and morals, great life habits from health and wellness to financial habits to being entrepreneurial to, just having a great faith journey, great family traditions, family dinners, just all the different things. Of course, we want them to be good readers and communicators and all of that. But really being an A student was a nice thing to have, but it wasn't the most important thing on our list. And, I had come out of elite private education myself, and I was a product of that. I'm grateful for that. And at the same time, it's a little, there are so many pitfalls in overemphasizing the value of just that. And so it was really came, out of something I really wanted for my own children. And so that's the genesis of it. It started at my kitchen table, and it grew from there. So that's how that started. I was really struck by Rich Dad, Poor Dad, reading that book, listening to TED Talks about from Angela Lee Duckworth in terms of what makes a child a successful adult, and it really came down to grit over, great genes and family background and social emotional, or even economic status for the parents. It really came down to how much grit a child developed, really determined their life success, however we define success. And that really struck me because so many parents of means will often pay for their kids. They'll snowplow the perfect life for their kids. And that doesn't develop grit. It doesn't really doing our kids any favors. And I really wanted to make sure that, in trying to give kids everything, that we are giving them the most important things, which is sometimes a paradox.
I love that. Changing gears, let's talk about homeschooling in California. What factors have contributed to the rising popularity of homeschool among California parents in the post-COVID world?
The rise in homeschooling is really just it started well before COVID, and it's really just gotten even more so. People are really questioning traditional education in a way that they never did before. The default was always just to go to the school down the street. And it usually took some massive trauma, like a horrible teacher or a bad bullying incident, or, a super gifted kid that couldn't be accommodated, that would really make parents think about homeschooling. Now, some parents are just even wondering why traditional school to begin with. I think the rise in politics in the curriculum that's being taught in many public and private schools makes parents uncomfortable. And Seashore is just one of those places where we just don't believe that some things are any of our business to be teaching. And so the fact that we don't teach a lot of politics, we don't teach sex ed, for example, at all. That's something that parents are responsible for teaching in their own homes in a way that they feel is a reflection of their values. So that's one of many reasons. There's also, I think, a distrust of technology. After the kids were on Zoom so much, so many public and private schools have the kids on Chromebooks and tablets all day long, even from very young ages. And I think a lot of parents thought that technology was great until they saw what happened when their kids were on Zoom all day. And now they're really questioning it. And like at Seashore, we don't do any screens at all. So the kids do have to upload some homework onto their Chromebooks at the end of the day in their parents' homes, but we don't use any instructional minutes. So you don't see any Chromebooks or tablets. It's all pencil and paper. And so the allure of having a homeschool group or having our kids learn outdoors or doing things a little bit differently has really risen. And I think just in general, there's just become a massive distrust of the system. After the way that things were handled in COVID, seeing kids with masks on and plexiglass and behind these horrible Zoom classes all day long every day, I think a lot of parents started questioning why these school leaders were making these choices and was it really good for their kiddos? And it just made them distrust the whole system in a way that they've never, thought to question before.
I align so well with everything you said, in addition to the scariness of school shootings and the safety involved when children are in a public school right now. It's not to say that schools are bad or teachers are bad, or It's really the politics and the policy makers that have changed the whole climate of public education. And I'm just so proud of everything you and your program has done to give choice to parents. And it sounds like you're treating students as a whole, not just focused on the academics and the grades that come out of what they learn on a daily basis, but really helping them become good citizens who can contribute back to our world in a positive manner.
Yeah, absolutely. We are, we do a lot of our learning outdoors. We do want those social emotional benefits. A lot of our math and science curriculum is, it's designed by a top private school curriculum designer. So, our kiddos in middle school are writing 5-page papers and they have footnotes and they're doing their algebra and geometry. And so we want to make sure that our kiddos are well prepared for life success in terms of their academic skills, but more importantly, that they're doing teamwork, cooperation exercises. We have an entrepreneurship class. We have financial management. We have a lot of things that are encouraging real life learning so that they have to fail and they have to work together, get frustrated, work through that frustration on a team project, so that they're really learning how to interact on the social emotional side that will prepare them for the workplace, prepare them to do business deals when they're older, and so forth.
Wonderful. Are there any specific advantages or benefits that homeschool offers compared to traditional schooling, particularly in the context of California? How do these advantages align with parents and their priorities and values?
I think there's a huge opportunity in homeschooling for parents to be incredibly intentional about creating whatever it is that they want. And so whether that's a religious curriculum, whether that's a values-based curriculum that could align, ours is a very patriotic curriculum. We say the Pledge of Allegiance, we have red, white, and blue. We learn a lot about respect, responsibility, entrepreneurship, hard work and grit and things like that. Whether it's more of an artsy, loosey-goosey, there are lots of different ways to homeschool. I think the pitfall could be that if it's not intentional and there's just too much time in front of the TV, or whatnot. So there's a beautiful opportunity. There are also some pitfalls. It can be unstructured if a parent isn't very intentional and isn't a great support network out there. Homeschooling sort of runs the gamut. So I think the beauty and the curse of it is that it's a canvas for the parent to paint. And so one of the things that a program like Seashore tries to do is just to provide a smorgasbord so parents can say, I want to do this and not that. I want Seashore to do the math and the writing skills and the science for me. And then I want to have a couple days where I could go horseback riding with my kiddo or do art and mud pies or whatever it is. Maybe it's a sport, where my kiddo can go be a professional go-kart racer or be an equestrian or whatever their passion is.
Wonderful. And what other challenges, I know you've mentioned a few, but what other challenges or hurdles do parents typically face when transitioning to homeschool in California? And how can they navigate through those?
I think one of the things that's hardest for parents is just when you say the word homeschool, you're almost treated like a leper, even still. There's just this, I mean, you can meet the most socially awkward kiddo who goes to public school, and it's just, nobody ever says, well, it's because he's, public schooled. But God forbid, a homeschooled kid has, a little blemish and it's like, oh, that's because he's homeschooled. So there's just so much responsibility on mom, typically, sometimes dad, but typically it's the homeschool mom. People say people say, oh, my kids are homeschooled, and people in the grocery line start peppering them with questions. What's 3 times 3? Do you know what the capital of Georgia is? I mean, things you would never ask a kid if you just said they go to the public school down the street, right? So there's a lot of pressure on moms when you say I'm homeschooling. I think less so now because it's becoming so normal, but that's been pretty hard. So I think there is a beauty in having a community, whether it's a learning center or whether you're part of a group. And also to take the pressure off of doing everything yourself. No human being can be everything to all aspects of a person. And especially as the kiddos get older, having play groups, having an academic group, having an art group, having a math group to balance out the social needs of the kiddos. So that's sort of I think one of the hardest things is finding that support. And again, I think it starts with mom and dad being very intentional. Are we homeschooling because we want our kids to be unschooled and not have any structure at all? I mean, there are groups for that. Are we homeschooling because our kid's really gifted and an amazing musician? And so then they affiliate themselves with groups for that. So I think it really depends on what that intentionality is, and then finding there are a million different groups out there, but it really starts with the parents being very intentional about their goals.
I love hearing that. And yes, it's also, if parents would take the time to realize they spend an enormous amount of time and money planning a wedding when they got married, or planning a vacation when they're taking that summer vacation. But yet, are they really looking at what they want for their child long term? And you've brought that to the forefront. So thank you for making that, just spotlighting that for parents to really be intentional is a good word that you've used. So what resources and support systems are available to California parents who choose homeschooling? And as an educational pool option for their children, how can they connect with other homeschooling families and access necessary educational materials and curriculum guidelines?
Yeah, so I mean, I think when parents start to homeschool, they come out of a lot of different buckets. If they're coming out of private school, if they're coming out of public school, if they're coming out of maybe a different homeschool group, doing a search of Facebook and Instagram, as ugly as they are in some ways, are great ways to sort of at least get initially connected with people. There are 3 different ways to legally homeschool. One of them is through these non-classroom based charter schools, and those charter schools are free. They do have government oversight, so if people don't want to register with the state for whatever reason, they don't have to use that, but they are free curriculum resources for families. And there's always the Homeschool Legal Defense Fund. That's a nationwide resource center. So some of those online searches are really helpful to at least get started in whatever geographical area you're in. And the nice thing about homeschooling is that there are options for every single different economic level, demographic as well.
Yes, wonderful. And I know all parents have to do in this state of California is file an affidavit if they choose not to register or enroll their child in an accredited charter school that allows homeschool. So it's very simple and easy to do. And there's a lot less accountability involved if that's what they choose.
Yeah, we always say there are three different ways to legally homeschool. We walk all of our families through that. It's a 5-minute free online form. It has to be filed before October 15th. We walk all the parents through that if they want to come in person, or if they want to do we have live Zooms for families to do that between October 1st and October 15th. So that's a very easy way to just make sure everyone's registered. But again, we also strongly encourage the non-classroom based charter schools. If the parents want a public school transcript and they want a little bit more guidance with the curriculum, that doesn't necessarily mean Seashore's curriculum, because we do all that. But for homeschooling families who just want to do it on their own, that's something we also encourage. No parent should feel discouraged from homeschooling because of the paperwork. It's a 5-minute free online form. Don't let anyone tell you that it's scary or intimidating or hard. It's very easy.
So glad to hear that Seashore Academy offers that. So we know that teaching students to think, discover, and create is the true essence of learning. Share one or two examples of how Seashore Academy engages students with project-based learning that homeschool parents can easily implement.
Yeah, so, it really is so important that our kiddos are working on their brains rather than the computer, especially in the age of Chat GPT, where everything's just spoon-fed. We really want critical thinking, where our kiddos are learning to question, they're learning to think critically, and they're not just becoming robots of passive learners who are learning things on a screen because it pops out at them. So that ingenuity is really something that's hard to teach unless it's done correctly. So we really want to take the natural ingenuity and creativity of kids and blast out there, whether that's through art, so we have an art class, whether that's through entrepreneurship, whether that's through blowing up things in science class or chemistry experiments or volcanoes. A lot of it's teamwork, a lot of it's hands-on, a lot of it, is really just giving those kids that space to be creative and to see what they come up with. It's been beautiful to see the entrepreneurship fair, for example, where the kiddos get to work together or not, to come up with their own products and services, logos, artwork, brochures, products, prices, and really let the creativity go wild with that. And make a profit, or maybe they lose money, which is okay. That's part of life. It's failure. So we want to encourage that. And so that's just one way they learn about math. They learn about teamwork. They learn about communication skills. Those are some of the things that we're really trying to make learning come alive. So when they're doing their marketing writing for their entrepreneurship fair, their writing skills are coming to life. When they're analyzing which products sold better or didn't sell, their math is coming to life when they're calculating their ROI. So those are just some of the examples of the ways we're trying to make learning relevant for them.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to share to learn more about your resources you provided today?
Thank you. We really welcome parental input and questions and suggestions. So we'd love your comments. We have a website full of resources for free for families and YouTube links, and we have guest speakers coming through talking, and we have all of those links up as well at seashoreacademy.org to talk about how to keep your kids safe online. And I will say the reason we have the campuses we have, a fifth one's opening up in September up in Manhattan Beach, South Bay. It's the first one that a family's opening up on their own, so they're franchising it. Is all the campuses we have are because parents have come up and said, can you please open up a campus in my area? I can't drive to Newport Beach. And a lot of the programs we have are because parents have asked, can you teach financial management? Can you teach this? I really think this is important. Can you teach ukulele before school? I really want my kids to learn music. And, it's not something I would have thought of. So a lot of the great programs we have, I always say, please write to us, give us suggestions. I love the input, and every year we're getting better and better because of parental input and suggestions, because parents really do know what's best for their kids. So we really trust that and celebrate that.
Wonderful. And congratulations on your new location.
Thanks.
Marlene, it was a pleasure having you on The Buzz. If you've enjoyed our discussion today, please like Firefly Tutors on all your social media hubs like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Find us on Pinterest, where we pin all of our favorite resources for parents and tutors. At Firefly Tutors, we believe every student deserves the opportunity to develop to their highest potential. See you next time on The Buzz.